7:19 at KPEL. Welcome into Acadiana's Morning News and Wingin' It Wednesday, brought to you by our friends over at Service Cadillac. Hey, new year, why not make it a new Cadillac with one of the largest Cadillac inventories in the state, by far the largest here in our area. All kinds of incentives on remaining 2016 Cadillacs. Hey, I got one.
You did.
I already raised my
hand.
Mm-hmm. I said I'll take one. $14,000 off a brand new 2016 Cadillac STX. $11,000 off the CTS. That's what I did. And the $11,000 off the ATS-V and ATS.
Are you serious? $11,000 off?
How awesome is that?
Okay. Nice, isn't it?
Anyway, we'll tell you more about their cars and the wash all coming up. We talked a little bit earlier about kind of our process. I pulled back the curtain on Wingin' It Wednesday just a bit. About, how we take listener topics, we see what's happening in the news, and sometimes things change and I might have to switch out one or two topics for the next morning.
Yeah.
And then last night happened and I came in, I said, Bernie, the stuff that we thought was going to still be big news today, Jeff Sessions and a couple other things, have now been replaced. Now we have Trump and Russia, Obama's farewell address. I mean, all kinds of things going on. Let's start with this report, 35-page report posted on BuzzFeed, apparently linking Trump and Russia even more, even going so far as to say Russia was looking for incriminating evidence against Trump himself. Carol, where do we stand in this?
Well, we don't believe any of it until we absolutely see some sort of substantive proof on any. I mean, there is so much derangement about Trump being elected. And the reason this is coming out now is because, first of all, they never thought he was going to be elected, so they didn't bring it out then. Now he's elected, and now they want to discredit him before he can even do one thing. It's going to roll off the public's back just like everything else has, because it's all so ridiculous. It is so ridiculous to think that Trump could do these kind of things with the Secret Service hanging around. And by the way, the intelligence reports that I've, from people who run internet security companies who have looked at that report, say it's pretty thinly sourced and it's not really credible.
There were some misspelled names, company names, dates.
I'm not only talking
times
about this recent report, I'm talking about all this other stuff about the Russian hacking. And Reince Priebus has said over and over again, yeah, they tried to hack us, but we were warned by the FBI on multiple occasions to get our security up. We did that. The Democrats, meanwhile, there's Hillary with the server in her bathroom, and Reince Priebus, John Podesta not listening to the FBI and asking his own IT people, and who knows what their qualifications are, and him telling, oh yeah, you can click on that link. Well, that opened not only his email, but everybody else's in the DNC. So they can blame anything they want, they can make any kind of allegations they want, and it is all to discredit Trump. They're scared to death of Donald Trump. He doesn't owe them anything. He established his own platform, and that the little speech by Meryl Streep, actually, it was it was lovely, wasn't it? And she picked the one thing that who could argue with, trashing a disabled person. Well, that's not exactly what happened to begin with. But secondly, she's worried about Trump bullying anybody when the media, the Hollywood and the mainstream press have done their best to bully and intimidate the American people for years. And she's worried about Trump bullying people, bullying them, they who have a platform. We finally had someone who had established his own credibility, his own platform, his own voice in the marketplace that could outshout theirs. And he's done it. And that's why they're all worried about that Twitter account. They're just crazy for him to give up that Twitter account because, he has about 30 million followers, and they're not buying anything the mainstream media is selling.
All right, Warren.
Yeah, the problem is with all of this stuff, you go back and it's all about trying to deflect what the real issues are. So they start in with this thing about, the Russians hacked, blah, blah, blah. And I've said it over and over, and I'll keep saying it over and over again. They have recorded everything we do. They record all of the radio conversations, all the long-distance telephone calls, and that's been going on for decades. And then they record every military transmission. The problem is that most of that stuff is encrypted, so they can't do anything with it. But it's not that you record; it's what you do with it. We record everything they do. They even came out not too long ago and said we had recorded Angela Merkel from Germany, recorded her private telephone conversations, which got leaked from Snowden or whatever. And so, nobody's denying the fact that all of this stuff is recorded. You got naval security stations, Air Force security stations, Army security stations, NSA security stations, CIA security stations. You got all these all over the world. All they do is record stuff, and then they try to find something in there they can use. This stuff coming out of the mainstream media jumping on this and trying to claim, well, that's the Russian trying to help Trump and blah, blah. What they're really trying to do right now is trying to create a deflection to try to damage the relationship between Donald Trump and what might happen with the Russians. And they are so afraid that what that group, the establishment group, wants hostility. They want to go into another Cold War so that we can have all this increase in spending on stuff that we don't need, and they will give them a little bit more power so they can sit there and continue spreading their lies and all of this and tell us that if we don't give them all of our money, then we're doomed to go to hell. And, and that's what it's all about. It's just that you people out there are so stupid. You have to have us to protect you. And I'm talking about the New York Times, the mainstream media, everything except KPL Radio. And they just keep going on and on and on
Very
with that stuff. That, if it wasn't for us, that you would just be back in the 1500s. And now people know that is not true. People now know that the bloggers on the Internet are more reliable than the New York Times.
But then you have the situation with BuzzFeed. That a lot of people follow BuzzFeed.
They follow it, but most people don't believe it. I'm talking about the real Americans that have
I would disagree with you on that.
Sense
people
and all
believe it.
Stuff.
If it's shared everywhere, it's the most shared thing of the day.
Everywhere is what I'm trying to say.
Well, then the idiots believe it. A lot of idiots believe it.
They do. They do.
There just are a lot of people that are.
They do, but so many of them now are beginning to understand that all this stuff they've been fed and are continuing to be fed. It's just that. It's just not true. It's made up. It's manufactured.
And we filter all these things through our own already established biases.
Absolutely.
And so we tend to believe those sites that say things that we believe and maybe already know, and we tend to discount the other ones. But I think that when you have a track record, as Warren said, if you have a track record over and over again with these the New York Times, the Washington Post, where they are continually bending the news to fit their agenda, and it's really hard for an objective person to find that source that they can trust.
Warren, wrap it up.
I really thought when this thing first came out that they were trying to say that Donald Trump had paid to engage the services of prostitutes in those upscale hotels in Moscow. And, and the thing about it is, in order to embarrass somebody or whatever, blackmail them, they've got to be embarrassed by it. And I can promise you that if that had been the news, Trump would have probably tweeted something about, have any of you guys ever been to Moscow? Have any of you ever seen the women sitting around in those lobbies? It's like when Bill Clinton came up and Jennifer Flowers came out. That was supposed to kill him. I was supposed to do him in. But guess what? His standing sort of shot up with most men, voting men.
As I said before, and I think you agreed with me when I said, part of the appeal of Donald Trump is he's got all this money, he's got all this power, and he has a one hot smoking wife. And that's every American's dream, man.
But the flip side of that was, if you remember Dan Quayle, George H.W. Bush's vice president, came out to Dan Quayle going on a golfing trip with a woman who posed nude in Playboy at one time. She didn't go with him, but she was in the group. And so they tried to put it out that Quayle had a little fling with her. Well, as it turned out, he asked her and she told him no. and Quayle's standings with 90% of the men in this country dropped like a rock.
All right, we're going to wrap this one up right there.
Get off to Dan Quayle.
I don't know. All I know is that's good stuff right there.
The arc of Wingin' It Wednesday,
Yeah, you just never know.
We're gonna let's talk about the Senate confirmation hearings of Trump's cabinet picks. Jeff Sessions underway. Rex Tillerson will continue today. We'll get all of that coming up, as well as your phone calls at 232-1542. Stay with us.
The former
732.
Wait, so she starts singing, and Warren, what's your deal?
About what?
What'd you say to this song? I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. Oh, you can not be repeated?
He was grumbling.
I wasn't paying any attention to the song.
Oh, okay.
No, that might have been me.
I was listening to their conversation
Cat Stevens.
about the milk dud.
Hey,
Y'all
have to interrupt you. I have this breaking story, shocking story from Neutral Ground News. 750,000 babies abandoned every year. King cake babies in Louisiana. The data indicates...
You are an evil man.
The majority of people who unexpectedly get the baby feel they aren't ready for the responsibility of having to buy the next king cake.
Yeah.
So they just toss out the baby and hope nobody sees.
Let me tell you something. They ruined the whole concept of king cake. They ruined it when they started putting all of those warnings on there that there might be a plastic baby inside. Be careful. And then they started putting the baby on the outside of the king cake.
Let me tell you.
So no goober would, because who would, if you know about king cake, you know to be careful,
Look,
right?
everywhere that I've ever worked, I always had king cakes shipped to me, family or whatever.
Right.
When you have to physically put it in, the look on people's face in Atlanta when you're actually going to put it in, they're like, why would you even do it? Like, if it's not already there, why would you risk, breaking a tooth? They think it's crazy, but, you slip it in.
Well, at one time it had meaning because if you slice up the king cake and the person who got the baby was
They bought the next king cake.
Yeah, they bought the next king cake or did something else. I don't know what.
Anyway.
I guess they could have done anything.
So the fun continues in Congress today. I'm sure the protesters are getting their signs ready. They might even be writing the signs right now as Jeff Sessions is expected to wrap up confirmation hearings. And then we move on to Rex Tillerson. Look, I think he was a really good sport about the whole thing. Addressed the racism charges right when it started and kind of laughed off the protesters, as did much of the panel, Democrats and Republicans, laughing at kind of his response to him. Because at some point he just said, well, I wonder how they feel about Guantanamo Bay. He knew it was very obvious. Lauren, what do you think? Are these guys going to sail right through?
I think that they probably will. I was driving a little bit yesterday, and I listened to the guy on your radio station here, Rush Limbaugh, reading an article from the front page of the New York Times, in which the New York Times did a spread on Jeff Sessions and basically talked about what a wonderful candidate he was and what a great job he's going to do as Attorney General. And Rush's idea was they know they're not going to defeat him in this hearing, so they're just going to do a pass on that. They're going to try to wound him a little bit, bring up some things so they can point to somewhere down the road, but they're going to let him go. So then they're going to focus all of their attention, all of their artillery and such stuff on people like Tillerson, the Secretary of State, or whatever.
But isn't Tillerson the only one that there has been some Republican pushback about, too?
Well,
what, Lindsey Graham and
that's what
John
I started
McCain?
saying. When you start talking about Republican pushback, if you're talking about those two idiots, then what you're talking about has been some Democrat pushback wearing the elephant trunk.
Gotcha.
And
right.
I don't think
we need to work on this passive aggression.
Is there anybody out there who takes those two serious anymore? If you do, raise your hand. I don't see a hand being raised out in radio land nor in the studio.
Put your hands on the radio.
Hey, let's take a phone call real quick before we get to Carol.
And you will be healed.
Good morning. You're on Acadiana's Morning News. Go ahead with your comment.
Yes. Did y'all hear Ted Cruz's on Jeff Sessions?
Yes.
I did, and it was absolutely great.
Magnificent. It was magnificent.
Oh, it was awesome.
Scored them
I
slice
was
by
laughing
slice.
so hard.
Oh.
It was just great.
It was magnificent, wasn't it?
Thanks for calling.
I was in the car. I stopped. I couldn't get out of the car.
And I'm sorry. Go ahead. I don't know who said it, but somebody quoted, said, Arlen Specter said, the worst vote I ever made, the one vote I wished I could take back, was a vote I made when I voted against Jeff Sessions to be federal judge.
Yes.
And he made that based on the misinformation, the lies that came out about him and all of that. That
the guy recanted, by the way.
Right.
Much later, of course, after the damage was done. As usual, the guy recanted it because none of it could be verified. Meanwhile, you did have cases that Sessions prosecuted when he was the state's attorney, or I'm not sure when.
He was the U.S. attorney.
He might have been a assistant U.S. attorney, and he did prosecute some civil rights cases and sent a Ku Klux Klan member to jail. Anyway, he was brilliant because Jeff Sessions is, if nothing else, a courtly Southern gentleman. But he never let up on his personal beliefs. When they asked him about Roe v. Wade, I thought, oops, here comes the minefield. Dianne Feinstein says, you once said that Roe v. Wade was wrongly decided. Do you still agree with that? Yes, I do. But it's the law of the land now. And it is what they say, a settled law, and I will follow the law. when he recused himself, when he said he would recuse himself from prosecuting Hillary Clinton over the email server and all of the things that came out about that, I thought, buddy, you are brilliant. And nobody on that panel, because they probably didn't want to know, said, well, if you're going to recuse yourself, are you going to appoint a special prosecutor? But nobody asked that follow-up question because I don't think they want to know. I think they'd love to have her ass sued. Excuse my language. Anyway, they would like to have her sued. I mean, I think there are a lot of people who would like to know exactly how that all went down because we haven't seen the whole story of that yet, I don't believe. And I don't think anybody really wants to know. But anyway, I'll tell you a little story. When we were in Washington, D.C. one year, and not too long ago, Jeff Sessions was testifying, and C-SPAN, the cab driver, who was, by the way, a foreigner and a minority, was listening to C-SPAN and Jeff Sessions testifying about immigration, about the immigration laws. I said, I'm so amazed that you're listening to him testify about that. It was no, it wasn't testifying. He was giving a speech, and C-SPAN covered it live. And it was a brilliant laying out of how we have to follow the laws. We have immigration laws. If we want to change them, we should go through Congress. They should not be by executive order at all. And he laid it out brilliantly. And the guy, I said, I'm amazed you're listening to that. I'm glad you're listening to that. It's very interesting. And he said, oh, this man is absolutely right. He said, there's too much of this going on. And he said, I had to jump through hoops to become a
And that's what we heard so much about the Latino vote, that no, not a single Latino was going to work for Trump, was going to vote for Trump. And then we would hear, I think the first interview that I saw, it might have been Hannity, talked to some people in El Paso who said, no, we went through the 7-year process.
Exactly.
And you know what? The illegals are taking our jobs.
Correct.
I mean, our jobs too.
Right. Exactly. Even more so.
What I want to know, where do you go to find a cab driver who is both a minority and a foreigner?
Washington, D.C., baby. Washington.
All right,
I think it's all over.
We move on to local issues.
Exactly.
Come back home for a new discussion about a property tax to support schools here in this area. We'll get the panelists' take coming up on Wingin' It Wednesday, brought to you by Service Cadillac. Stay with us. 7:44 at KPEL, and we're up against another vote that could affect your property taxes. The latest one that's going to be voted on this afternoon, property tax to support schools in the area. Bernie, you have a really interesting document.
Like when you look at a particular, like a tax bill, if you're going to look at your tax bill for the parish, for example, right, you're looking at how many mills are there for certain things. If you're looking like, a downtown development, for example, they get 11.24 mills. 11.24 mills.
And this is a parish, right? This is someone who lives in the parish, right?
Yeah, I believe so. School district regular taxing, 4.59 mils. A special school district taxing district, 7.27 mils. Another one for improvements. There's already a special
I was about to say that puts it over everything else.
Improvement is a 5.1. Yeah, but when you consider the fact that that's still not much, but then you have other areas that are really high. Roads and bridges really low too. I mean, it's like, what do we do with our tax money? Should we be looking at these millages?
Carol, what are your thoughts?
I think the majority of the property tax millages, the city of Lafayette is a pauper compared to what the school board gets. And if you add up all those special taxing districts that you see there for the school board, it's a pretty substantial. Now, numerically, I've got all these statistics, and I left them at home. I should have brought them, but I do remember from 2005 to 2015, just the past 10 years that they actually had full numbers for, because I don't think they have the full assessment for 2016 yet. But anyway, the property tax has just about doubled, more than doubled. But the student population in the past 20 years has not gone up appreciably. At one time, at 1995-96 school year, I saw statistics that it was like just over 30,000. Now they didn't count kindergarten, I don't believe, at that time. Now they count kindergarten, and it's still only increased by a couple of thousand, maybe 1,000 or 2. So here you have property taxes doubling just about, and the school population virtually static. And your question is, where does the money go? Back in the 80s, when Dr. Zolkowski was the superintendent, he built 4 schools. There's one of those schools, I don't know that it's ever been used to its full capacity, NP Moss. There's been a controversy about that school from day one. So we have those new schools. I understand there are a lot of temporary buildings. I do understand that. But then you have the school board doing something like when they had to, because of the new school being built. By the way, Northside High School is way under capacity because of the same problems that they had with NP Moss. Como has been somewhat under capacity, and now they're building that new school in South Lafayette. So they have to shift everything around to accommodate that new school, which is, by the way, they keep increasing the amount spending for that.
Como was the one that was way overcrowded because that's what they're using. They're taking some from there and
moving them over there.
And the academies.
However, to offset that, they're putting the Performing Arts Academy over
there. Yep.
It made no sense to do that. Lafayette High has an exceptional performing arts. They had an exceptional health academy too. But if you're going to move one, you have the performing arts facilities at Lafayette High already, and move the health academy over to Como, right there by Lourdes. They can, have visiting professors, whatever. They can have that symbiotic relationship with Lourdes. But no, what did we do? We moved the performing arts to Como and left the health academy at Lafayette High. What does that mean? We have to spend now at least $6 million that we know of to build performing arts facilities at Como because they don't have any performing arts facilities. What is the school board think? Is that any logical thought there? And now they're going to come back to us in the same day that they're giving raises to teachers and everybody else. I don't mind giving the classroom teachers raises, but similar to what they did on that 2002 tax, they add in all kind of data analysts and all that and specialists, and it's not just necessarily the classroom teachers that are getting the raise. They will tell you it is, but anyway, now they're giving raises and they want more taxes from us. By the way, we have a $75,000 homestead exemption as homeowners. Businesses don't get that exemption. We have businesses that have been hit so hard from the state of Louisiana, business taxes. We are so business unfriendly right now in Louisiana. And now you want to come because the property taxes in Lafayette Parish are paid almost 60%, 58, 59% by business.
Warren, your thoughts on this, and then we'll go to the phones at 232-1542.
The first thing I want to apologize for is Carol just used what, in my estimation, is one of the most offensive, vulgar, and profane words that can be used when discussing something like the school board, when she said, and some of you didn't catch it, when she said logic.
Oh, my.
I mean, that's one thing that just doesn't enter into it, and if anybody there tries to bring it up, they're going to be ostracized, impeached, thrown out, locked up, handcuffed, put in a straitjacket or whatever.
You're anti-education.
Oh, absolutely. Just like the lady now, the designate for the U.S. Secretary of Education, is how that she is going to destroy public education. Oh, she is about 75 years too late. And look, here's what I would like to do, and I'll be more than happy to meet with the school board, the superintendent, or with anybody else and put together a little proposal of what needs to be done to address some of these issues from the top down, the inside out, and the bottom up. Do they want to hear it? Hell no. And they won't even charge $4 million. We'll charge a lot less now. I think $4 million is what they paid the one group to come in here and tell us that we need to spend $1 billion on new school buildings.
Yes.
I mean, look, it's
just not going to fly with people.
We need to have an adult discussion on education in general.
I agree.
You had old Dr. Z who came in here, and he built these schools and all that, and he was such a wheeler-dealer, nice guy, but he did not have to go get federal judges' approval.
Yeah,
Let's go to the phones, 232-1542. 232-1542, your thoughts on the proposed tax hike to support schools. Good
I've been
morning,
censored.
Yeah, Rob. Carol hit the nail on the head, 1,000%. I agree with her. Just because we don't want to impose another tax for the school board, don't tell me that we don't value education and it's not a priority. I have a small business in Lafayette, and December is a slow month for me, but December is when we all get our tax bills in from the city and state. So as a Christmas present, I've got thousands of dollars to pay when in a month that I can barely take any pay home. I got to fork out thousands of dollars, and when you look at the millages, like I was talking about, the school board millages exceed a lot of the other millages. We pay a lot of millages to the school board, and it's quite frustrating.
I think people, and great point, sir. Thank you. I got 2 text messages from 2 different business people within that same conversation one saying that's why we're not going to be doing what we were doing anymore, and I'll show you my paperwork is what the other guy said.
Yes.
Because these people are crying out there, and I'm telling you.
They're hurting. People are hurting.
It's a huge impact.
And why is it always that we have to?
Y'all need to look at your tax bills and look at who's getting what on these millages. Now, people voted. And
start to compare them.
Yes, compare them. And people voted for these millages.
The city of Lafayette is not for the services that the city of Lafayette provides for over 100,000 people is so far less than what the school board gets to service about 33,000 if you take in the employees and the students.
But that is another reason why we need to completely revamp the way we do taxes. Mm-hmm. You got all these dedicated funds going in there. What happens when they don't? When there's more money coming in than what they need? Mm-hmm. All right, answer me that. What happens?
There's no
rainy
and look,
most of them find a way to spend it.
Well, sure.
I understand that this school board is trying to make up for past sins because those Butler, how many of those were leased? They could have bought those things 10 times over. So what kind of brother-in-law deal was that? You know the amount of contracts that they sent and what kind of brother-in-law deals are in there. I give them credit. I think they're trying to do the right thing. But this is not the right thing, and it's definitely not the right time.
You know what? You can still learn in one of those Butler buildings, too. And I heard that over and over and over.
Let's take a couple more calls. 232-1542. Good morning. You're on Wingin' It Wednesday.
Hey there. I just wanted to comment on the school taxing.
Yes.
I'm curious because I feel like these millages are representative and being collected from everybody with property, but a lot of people have their kids in private schools. So this money that's there should really already be situated to educate all of these kids. And I think they should have enough to educate the kids that are, not in those public schools at this point in time.
Well, Lafayette has a very high percentage of our student population in private schools. If you think of those parents, they're not only paying property taxes for the public schools, they're paying extra to have their child go to a private school and get maybe a little help from the state in terms of transportation and food. I'm not sure what they do.
It does sort of make you wonder, okay, what if everyone said, okay, we're not
they
doing
can't handle
school.
it.
There's no way that the parish could handle all those.
It's the old Jack Nicholson thing. You can't handle it.
You want to go back to the phone lines and free up a little time here, maybe? Or
you can't handle the truth.
Hi, you're on Acadiana's Morning News, Wingin' It Wednesday. Go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that this community does value education. That's why many of us took our children out of public education and now pay out of our pockets for parochial private school.
Yep.
Another thing on the millages, too, if you look at certain areas like the library, there's a lot of money that goes there. In an age where, my kids can, get access to books real easy just from when they're home without going to the library. But we've got all these libraries around and their usage. The only one I see that's getting used is the one over on the south end of town.
Yeah.
I was about to say south side.
Oh, it really does.
And then you have the Bayou Vermilion district that has lots of money, more money than they know what to do with. And, we're having these floods and so forth because perhaps they're not spending that money appropriately.
All right, thank you. Let's go to one more call, Bernie.
Yeah, and library millages are about 6.
That was
about 6 mills total.
If I missed my guess, that was the last parish-wide tax that was passed.
Was what? Bayou Vermilion?
The library.
Oh,
millage.
library millages.
The increase in the library millage.
Yeah,
yes.
It's a total of about 6 as I just take a fast look here. All right, you're next on Wingin' It Wednesday. Go ahead.
Yes. Nobody seems to hold the school board accountable for anything. I would start an independent investigation and hold their butts to the fire, and if anybody gets too close, burn them a new one.
You know what?
Okay,
they have even limited public comment, which is a trend all across the country. Public bodies do not want to hear what the public has to say. Because they don't want any inconvenient facts to come up at any meeting where they might have to answer for it. And I'll give kudos to Tommy Angel and Britt Lachelet. They voted against putting this on the ballot. By the way, their vote tonight, the full board is going to be voting this evening at their meeting to decide whether to put this tax proposal on in April. If you want to have an impact right now, you might want to think about it.
You need to go to that meeting.
Or call your
Call your school board person.
School board member.
You know, how do I get in touch with them? What do I do? That whole
And then
bit.
look up what Mark Twain said about school boards.
All right, you're next on Wingin' It Wednesday. Go ahead.
I won't repeat it.
Go ahead.
You talking to me?
Yeah,
yes,
go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my big issue is I'm not from here. I'm from a different. I've lived all over the country, and I still struggle with the dollars per student spent on individuals. You know, each individual student. It's amazing. I have 4 complaints about Louisiana, and one of them is the school systems. And I don't know how we can spend that much money and yet not have the education systems that many of our other surrounding states have. Why can't we? I mean, there's just too much we're too top heavy. At the end of the day, I'd like to see something done. We've got to be able to go in. I mean, we've got to start over somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you love to see a forensic analysis of every program? And please don't give me that federal gobbledygook and mandate this and mandate that. Just go in and look at every program. I was there for a meeting when this woman was testifying about this program that they were going to improve English scores and math scores. And they said, and I think it was Tommy Angelo who asked her, he said, but you haven't improved any of the scores. She said, well, the parents can decide. Well, what if the kid is deficient in math? Well, they can decide whether they go into English or math. So you're not telling them, if they're deficient in math, you go into the math program. If they're deficient in English, you go into the English. But I sat there and my mouth was open and I said,
Warren, wrap this one up for us.
I think what it is, we do have a good public school system here. We just don't have a good leadership. And, there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. But when they came out a few years ago and said they wanted to increase a sales tax increase to make the Lafayette Parish have the highest paid school teachers in the state, it failed the first time. They came back the second time, and they had the support of the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, the NAACP, and a whole lot of other people. And what everybody was told was, if we have the highest paid teachers, we're going to increase the test scores. We're going to decrease the dropout rate. All the bad numbers are going to go up. All the good, all the bad numbers are going down. The good numbers are going up. David Thibodeau came by and talked to us, and on and on and on. And what happened? The last conversation I had with him was 48 hours before he died. And I said, David, you came by and you told us all of that. What happened to the test scores? Oh, I know. And nothing changed. Nothing changed. More money went there, nothing changed.
Okay, right. Education, you're paying about 33 mils, a little bit more than 33 mils. Downtown development, 11. Let's see what else. Law enforcement, 8. There's 8 and then an 8.76.
And look, we're
not picking on anybody.
We're
just
not
picking the numbers.
And I'll tell you what, I will not pick on the teachers because believe me, they have to deal with so much.
I got news for you. My husband did student teaching, the substitute teaching. He did substitute teaching for about 6 weeks, and he was lucky. He ended up kind of getting a semi-permanent gig, and was very delighted. But in some of the other classes that he had at first, nobody in their right mind barely wants to put up with your problems. You don't teach your kids at home. You don't discipline your kids at home. And you send them into a school system where you're going to pay somebody a starting salary or a salary of $32,000 to tell them how they need to speak proper English. They don't know how to be nice to people. They don't know boundaries. They think it's the internet and they're going to get everything they want right away. The schools are dealing with all of society's problems, and the teachers get the brunt of it because they're not only getting it from the front line, they're getting it from the parents, they're getting it from the administrators. They get these mandates thrown down on them, and from the taxpayers.
Yeah,
and from the taxpayers.
Right. Get ready. Our friend Kim Commando, the digital goddess, on last weekend's show.
Yes.
There's a new product that was unveiled at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show out in Vegas, that actually teaches your kids, does your kids' homework, requires them to say please and thank you. Basically, there's no need to have a parent anymore.
There's no need to have bricks and mortar anymore. Think about it. Where is our communication going? I mean, you can have schools anywhere. How many vacant buildings are there in Lafayette that could be retrofitted as schools or as teaching facilities, teaching pods? I mean, look at the homeschoolers, what they have available to them via the internet. It's a whole new world out there, and I think this old thinking about bricks and mortars really needs to be looked at, really needs to be rethought.
All right, great discussion as always. We even kind of went over time, but that's okay. We could do that on radio. We don't have to stop.
Radio's magical.
Kelly Ripa's not waiting for us. We can just keep on going.
Who is Kelly Ripa?
All right. All right, Swinging It Wednesday brought to you every week by Service Cadillac. We will have this whole conversation, as invigorating as it was, a little bit later on. KPEL965.com. Stay with us. It's 8:02.